They have two product categories, Tim. David Protein. They have protein bars and they have cod. First ever, I think, of this product mix. One, two, three.
Coming up on the Modern Acre, we're talking a little bit about the CPG space, getting into protein bars, a $600 million exit to Kellogg, and building a new brand in the space.
The Modern Acre is presented by American Ag Credit. American Ag Credit is a proud member of the Farm Credit System, which was created more than 100 years ago with the sole purpose of serving the financial needs of farmers and ranchers. From small farms to the largest agribusiness enterprises, American Ag Credit understands agriculture and how to structure customized financial solutions. Just like many of the guests we have on the pod, American Ag Credit recognizes that the evolution of agriculture is inevitable and exciting. Their goal is to be at the forefront of this evolution, partnering with producers to grow their future in ways they haven't imagined yet. To learn more about American Ag Credit and to receive exclusive access to reports from Terrain, a research and insight service of American Ag Credit, visit agloan.com/terrain or hit the link in our show notes. All right, Tim, I have been eager and excited to do this episode. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to unpack a category in CPG, the protein bar category, specifically focusing on RX Bar, which many of you probably know. RX Bar, massive protein bar, nutrition bar brand that sold to Kellogg for $600 million. The same founder of RX Bar just launched last year a brand new protein bar differentiated called David Protein. And there's been a lot of controversy, a lot of interesting marketing going on with David Protein. So we're going to dig into it all because why are we doing this? I think there are so many business lessons across this story, Tim. Like you could almost write a book on the amount of business lessons coming from scaling RX Bar and scaling and selling RX Bar, and now with David Protein. So I am excited to unpack this with you, Tim.
Yeah, it's a super fun topic. We were consumers of both these brands, have followed it. We listened to how I built this with the founder of RX Bar kind of post-acquisition. It was just really cool hearing the story, and his latest venture that we saw last year is just super interesting. So excited to kind of dive in. So I guess let's start with RX Bar, Ty, and just chat a little bit about like the brand, how it started, and then we'll roll from there.
All right, so RX Bar was founded by Peter Rahal and Jared Smith in 2013 in Chicago. They started this brand, Tim, to focus on a differentiated nutrition bar that was really paleo friendly and really specifically CrossFit friendly. Peter, who's the founder of both RX Bar and David Protein, he was into CrossFit and he saw in the space, in the category, many people think that protein bars are a crowded category, and hearing him talk about the space, I think he has a contrarian opinion about like crowded categories. Like just because a category is crowded doesn't mean that there's not an opportunity there. And I think that's a really good insight, that just because there's a lot of players, it could mean that all those players don't have differentiated products and it's fragmented, which means that there's an opportunity to come in with something fresh. I've heard this idea of going to a grocery store and looking at the different categories and looking for a sea of sameness, right? Like what categories, just everything looks the same. It's undifferentiated. Like that's actually a good category to target.
Totally. We've seen a lot of examples of this. There's, I think, the almond milk brand that has a different unique package where you go to the milk aisle, all the milk jugs look the same. A different unique carton just kind of stands out on the aisle. Like we've been following Heyday Canning, which is kind of differentiating in the canned fruit and vegetable aisle, which is very interesting, where you just kind of go in there, everything looks kind of old, like dated from the 80s, all these old school brands, and pop a fresh new brand label kind of stands out in these crowded marketplaces. And protein bars are especially crowded. Like when you go down that aisle, there's just like 30 different options. They all look the same. They all have just these outrageous claims and labels, and really how do you stand out in that space. And the way that RX Bar approached it was with their ingredients. And I think a lot of takeaways here in agriculture and produce, when you go in the produce department, everything looks the same. There's watermelons, there's pumpkins, there's all these things that look the same. How can you kind of flip the script and make something unique by pulling in kind of key differentiators? RX Bar focusing on the ingredients.
The story with RX Bar really starts and ends with that, Tim, with the ingredients. Because paleo is this idea of just eating really clean ingredients, whole foods, unprocessed. The bars themselves are like very, very unprocessed, almost to like a weird degree. If you're not used to eating a bar like this, they're made of egg whites and nuts and dates essentially, and so there's not a lot of other stuff that makes protein bars like taste really good. And so if you're not used to the taste, it's definitely different. But I think they that was their advantage, right? Is because all those other bars, they kind of tasted like candy bars and their ingredients reflected that. And they said, no, we're going to focus on these super clean ingredients that the CrossFit community in particular are going to really be about, so that they can have a quick, high protein snack as a breakfast replacement or something. And so they started with these clean ingredients, different type of bar consistency and flavor. And Tim, I think a huge lesson is how they scaled. How did they get the word out? So they made this product, and Peter started just testing it with his CrossFit gym, right? And just saying, hey, do you guys like this? What do you think? And making them in his kitchen. This was before they had a commercial kitchen set up, and just getting product feedback, consumer feedback really quickly with his own gym. Then from there, how did they scale up from that? It was just like he had the idea of, people like it in my gym, people are going to love it in other CrossFit gyms. So CrossFit as their distribution strategy, CrossFit was their distribution strategy to start. So he just went to other gyms and said, hey, people like these bars because they're clean ingredients. Everyone likes them at my gym. Do you want to sell them at your gym? And so that was how they really scaled from kind of their initial customers to get more nationwide traction.
Yeah, interesting, kind of like riding these mega trends and kind of being kind of this complementary thing. Like we talk about GLP-1s and like what are the health and lifestyle businesses that are going to be built on top of that mega trend that's happening. Like a lot of businesses, I think, started kind of with this CrossFit culture that was kind of booming 10 plus years ago. We talked to Justin Maris from Kettle and Fire, and he was selling bone broth at his CrossFit gym. And remember, like when I first started going to CrossFit gyms, there was that drink called Life Aid. I don't know if you remember that one, but it was like a popular kind of post-workout drink that was in every CrossFit gym. So kind of, yeah, finding what is kind of the next health wellness thing and how can you piggyback a business on top of that and kind of ride that wave is really interesting.
Is that Fit Aid?
Fit Aid.
Fit Aid. Yeah. So he mentioned Fit Aid as well. And I think, man, there's so many lessons and things we can learn for ag, but CrossFit gyms were their distribution, but then let's talk about product placement. So Fit Aid had a really interesting, similar idea. They scaled as with CrossFit as their distribution, but Fit Aid was a cold drink. And so what the founders did of that company is they would pay for the fridge and give it to an owner to say, hey, I'm going to give you this fridge for free, and it's going to be stocked of Fit Aid. And, if you sell out and you want to use it for other purposes, that's fine, all good. But he kind of had the hope of, hey, if we sell those out, they'll keep buying Fit Aid to stock the fridges. So the location, the physical location, the retail location is important, and then the product place is important. And going back to RX Bar sold on top of those fridges. So not only did RX Bar piggyback on this mega trend of CrossFit and paleo, they piggybacked literally on top of the fridge in terms of product placement. And I think that more companies need to be thinking about how do they differentiate in everything that they're doing. And I feel like that's the story of RX Bar and David Protein now, of when you're thinking about a strategy, how do you differentiate every little sliver? And product placement is one of those fascinating case studies, Tim. I'm also thinking about the 5-Hour Energy. 5-Hour Energy scaled by having a completely different location, right? Because people were used to like energy drinks being in the fridge section. 5-Hour Energy had a massive success because they were able to sit right at the register, right at the checkout line, right? Because they were small and could fit right there as a last minute item, and that's how they had a lot of success. So just the product placement piece is fascinating.
Yeah, I think a lot of interesting takeaways here for agriculture tied just the way that meat is distributed, that dairy is distributed, that produce is distributed, and farm goods in general are traditionally sold through grocery stores or they're kind of alternate paths that brands companies could look to kind of have a different distribution strategy and scale through gyms or scale through somewhere else. Is just really interesting to think about because historically buying an energy drink didn't happen at a gym. You went to the gas station after you went to the gym and picked one up on the way home.
Totally, totally. All right, now let's move to how did RX Bar go from CrossFit domination to nationwide distribution to the average consumer. And this was actually quite hard for them. They every time they tried to go to retail, they just wouldn't see the sell-through numbers that they were seeing in gyms. And a lot of that was attributed to the name RX Bar, right? In CrossFit, RX means doing a workout at like the top level, right? As prescribed. And so it's kind of a representation or a symbol of doing things with excellence at the highest level, right? But for the average consumer, they don't know that. An RX bar feels like, what am I? Is this like some sort of medication? Like, what is it? So they always struggled getting out of this CrossFit space. And they had a massive aha moment, and that changed the trajectory of the business, Tim. They worked with a brand agency and thought about, hey, how can we focus on what we do best? And that was their ingredient list, right? People were looking for clean ingredient products that were protein forward. And their first ingredient on every bar was egg whites. And people like that resonated with people because egg whites were seen as this premium, great protein source ingredient. And so they worked with the brand agency to rethink the packaging and label and brought the ingredients not on the back, but they put them on the front. And this was a massive, complete game changer for the business because then their product became just amazing marketing because people could just see the ingredients, understand what this is and how it's clean, and it changed the game for them. They went from single digit millions of revenue to over 100 million in revenue over the course of a few years, really driven by this change. We've seen a ton of copycats, Tim, of this strategy. I don't think to the same degree as our RX Bar experience because they were really the first to focus on this product marketing strategy.
Yeah, love this approach. I think a lot of companies just do what kind of the rules say when it comes to like packaging and food labeling, where it's like you have to have XYZ on your label, and like let's just hide that on the back as nondescript as possible and try to just like talk about our brand everywhere else. And they kind of like flip that and like we'll put the ingredients on the front, and that is our brand, which was like a totally unique approach. So I think that was definitely their game changer that helped them kind of level up and differentiate from the rest of the category.
And I'm reminded of that. We talked about the one board game designer. The what's the name of the game? The Crazy Cats or
Exploding Kittens.
Exploding Kittens founder talking about how they think about marketing and just trying to rethink the rules, like you said, Tim, of like how do we do an idea in like the craziest, most unique way possible? And I think that RX Bar did this of like, hey, how do we promote our biggest value add being our ingredients? Like, let's think about this at the highest first principle level. Like, oh, if our ingredients are our biggest value driver and why people choose our product, that should be front and center. So forget our name, RX Bar, let's deprioritize that and let's prioritize these ingredients. So this, Tim, ultimately led them to massive scale and a $600 million exit with Kellogg. So just massive success. I think it was a 12 to 14 times multiple on EBITDA, just a massive deal for them to as one of the really marquee deals in CPG.
And then he runs it back. Interesting to have that big of an exit and go back and start a very similar business. This one is like very differentiated. It's all about kind of macros, and the ingredients aren't on the front. So let's jump into David Protein.
Let's jump into David Protein. Tim, I've been talking about this for years, so I'm like, this is a classic example of, man, why didn't I do this? Not that we have a few things going on right now, so I think there's a few reasons. I've always had an issue with this, right? Going in the protein bar aisle, you think protein bar. I want a bar that has a high level of protein, especially specifically relative to carbs and fats, right? You want a protein bar that's high protein. But anytime you go to the aisle, I always have this experience where I see a cool label, it looks like it's clean. I turn around the back, and it's 18 grams of protein and 22 grams of fat, or 36 grams of carbs. And so there's more fat and or carb macros content than protein. So I'm like, why am I even eating this? Like, what is the point of this? I'll just have a glass of milk or something. And so I always struggled. I'm like, someone needs to figure this out. Why can't we get protein shakes, protein powder? They figured this out, right? And I know it's dealing with consistency and all this stuff. I'm not saying it's easy, but in a protein shake, you can get 25, 30 grams of protein and like 2 grams of fat and 3 grams of carbs, right? Like very low relative to the protein content. And so I've always had this issue. And then I hear about David Protein, and that's their whole model is, hey, we've created a protein bar that, one, tastes good, two, has high protein, which is needed, and three, has low carbs and fat content. So like the amount of protein you're getting per calorie is best in industry. And so when I saw this, I was like, finally, like, this is awesome. And I think a differentiated play, and you could see how Peter, the founder, has thought about both of these. Like, how do you launch something that has some clear differentiator versus the market?
Yeah, you were early to David Bar following this trend, Ty. I remember you sent me a picture from Costco, and you were like looking at bars, and you found a protein bar called Clean Bar or something, and you turned around the label, and there was like 30 ingredients. But like, this doesn't seem very clean. So just the branding is so crazy in the space. For David to kind of do it with more minimal ingredients, have a really good tasting product, and have actually really good macros is quite novel and new to the space. They've been met with a little bit of headwinds on kind of like what those ingredients are. Like, there's not as many ingredients, but there are some that like people have kind of piqued their interest in, kind of what is this and what does this mean? So we can kind of dive into where they're at currently and some of the headwinds of launching this model.
Yeah. So what could go wrong, right? Like, great idea. So, I saw David early. I pre-ordered it. I was like crushing David bars, one a day, and I actually really liked the consistency and the flavor and the taste. I was like, they've done it. They've made it happen. And David was really spreading like wildfire. I think they're on track to over 100 million in revenue their first year. So this is like very different from the RX bar, Tim. Like, it was like slow, bootstrapped, profitable growth, exit to Kellogg. This is the opposite. They raised $10 million seed round in September of 2024, launched, and then in May of this year, they raised $75 million. So they've raised $85 million total. The value of the company is over $700 million based on that Series A this year. And they're on track to over 100 million in sales in the first year. So this is a way, way different trajectory than RX bar. So yeah, what could go wrong? So we had Justin Mares on the podcast. He may have started this, may have been one of the starters of this controversy, because he called out David for using a novel ingredient called EPG. EPG is essentially this novel ingredient that this ingredient maker Epoji makes and creates. And what it does is it has a consistency, texture, and feel of a fat type substance with not having a high level of fat calorically. So you can get this consistency of a savory fat ingredient without the calories. And that was really the ingredient that unlocked this macro profile. And but the ingredient has been met. It's a highly processed ingredient, seed oil derivative. So all the seed oil, party have come after this ingredient and said, this is high processed food. Like, why are we pushing and promoting these highly processed food? And EPG has been linked to like gastrointestinal issues, etc. So this they've gotten a lot of backlash for this, Tim. So yeah, what did you make of this?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. I can like see both sides to the story where it's like the whole Maha movement of kind of wanting to move away from processed foods. This is a more processed ingredient, but like in the context of the category, like every protein bar is processed. Like when you look at the clean bar example that has 30 ingredients, there's seed oil derivatives and a lot of other bad products there. So I think it's a much more clean option in the category that it's playing, but like you can always do something better. And like a single ingredient product, like you could eat a piece of cheese or have a glass of milk and get your protein that way. If you want to just be that kind of hardcore about it, I think like it's all balanced. Like if you eat this like 3 bars a day, then maybe maybe you'll have some issues. Like if you eat a couple a week, it's probably a better option than snacking on kind of some worse alternatives that have worse macros. So I think it's a really interesting approach. And like with their Series A, like I think they saw so much potential with this ingredient that they actually used some of the Series A round to purchase Epogy, the supplier. So they basically like, we got some traction here. Let's just lock up the supplier and kind of get it exclusively. So there was a lot of people that were mad about that because Epogy could have done deals with other protein bar companies to kind of have this technology go further and when more broadly adopted. So they definitely like saw traction and seized on it.
Yeah, this ingredient has been like the blessing and the curse, right? It's been like what's allowed them to create this product, but it's been the thing that's gotten the most backlash. Totally agree with you, Tim. I think I always take issue with people that are like zero processed food because that's not really realistic for 99.9% of people. Like you're going to have some level of processed food in your diet. And I think the key is like, hey, you should be getting the majority of your calories from minimally processed food. I think a lot of people would agree with that, right? But yeah, if you have one of these bars, a day instead of making a bad decision or having a candy bar, I think that's a huge net positive. And yeah, if it doesn't work for you and your body responds to it poorly, then obviously don't have it. But I think it's overall a net positive. The Tim, people didn't take issue with them acquiring Epogy. People are suing them for acquiring Epogy because what they've done, they've essentially, because their demand is so high, they need this ingredient. There's limited supply of this ingredient. They bought the supplier and basically directed 100% of supply of this ingredient to David when Epogy had other customers, right? So these other customers are like, you're totally turning off this our supply chain, right? So it's a very interesting legal battle going on right now, and we're not going to make a decision or a pronouncement one way or the other, but really interesting, Tim. I think, yeah, again, for ag, whatever your product or service is, whether it's in food or in ag tech, is yeah, what's your competitive advantage or what's your secret sauce or your IP that you can lean in on and be a differentiator, both from a product perspective and from a supply chain competitiveness standpoint. So I think a lot of lessons there. Tim, we're going to wrap this up with David's latest announcement. So this was amazing. So David, on their website, when they launched, they made this big deal about the macro profile and the protein, basically the amount of protein you're getting per calorie. And they put up a chart comparing David with the other protein bars out there, and it was like no contest, right? David had just a way better protein to calorie ratio. And they use as kind of a benchmark, they put up cod, the fish, right? Because cod is incredibly low fat, low carb, high protein source of calories. And so they kind of had that of like, we stand up to cod. Since they've created all this, had all this backlash, people saying, oh, this is a processed food and being up in arms about this, they had this insight, I think, this is my opinion here, of let's lean into this controversy and make it a PR move. Like this is like almost out of the Ryan Holiday playbook, Tim. So this last week launched cod on their website. So you can they have two product categories, Tim, David Protein. They have protein bars and they have cod. First ever, I think, of this product mix. And so they're selling cod. And I think this was a PR move. I think this was like kind of like rubbing it in people's face or like punking people of, oh yeah, you guys want a cleaner ingredient snack? Why don't you just like snack on some boiled cod? and so they're working with like an influencer fisherman of like fresh cod. So like they have an awesome supply chain marketing story and channel there, and they're going to sell it. And I bet, Tim, they're going to sell a lot of cod and make good money. But it's also kind of like a big fu to everyone of like, yeah, you don't need to buy our protein bars if you're just this processed food police, but you could just buy our cod and snack on that. So I thought this was just a PR masterclass by David.
Yeah, it was quite the chess move. When you sent it to me, I was like, "Is it April Fool's right now?" It just seems like one of those kind of gimmicky products, and like, no, it's July. This is actually a real deal. So it's just pretty interesting to see the move. Agree with everything you said on kind of, yeah. There's the people that always want the bar to be higher. Like when you talk about kind of transparency and sustainability, like it's never enough. And so they're like, all right, we'll just one up it and just have cod on the website too. And it's a single ingredient flash frozen fillet of cod that you can snack on if you don't like our bars.
So many lessons here, Tim. This was awesome to dig in on RX Bar and David Protein. We're going to be following David Protein because, like, man, what are they going to do next? I can't wait to see. But hope you guys enjoyed this, digging into RX Bar and David Protein and the lessons and what this means for your business and how you can be thinking strategically about marketing, supply chain, IP, PR. Like there's so many good lessons in here. So hope you enjoyed this one. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, and we appreciate you listening, and we will be back soon.